The uneasy silence inside the towering headquarters of Meridian Capital struck Eleanor Hayes long before anyone spoke a single word to her, and years of navigating corporate boardrooms had taught her that people often revealed the truth through what they refused to say rather than what they admitted aloud. As she crossed the polished marble lobby, she noticed colleagues suddenly fascinated by their phones, assistants avoiding eye contact, and conversations ending the instant she approached, creating an invisible wall of tension that confirmed her instincts that something significant had already been decided without her knowledge. Only moments after stepping through the security gates, her phone vibrated with an unexpected calendar invitation labeled Executive Review, Immediate Attendance, a meeting that had not existed when she checked her schedule less than an hour earlier before leaving home. Eleanor had spent 14 consecutive quarters transforming struggling divisions into record-breaking performers, negotiating partnerships worth hundreds of millions of dollars, mentoring future executives, and rebuilding departments that others had quietly abandoned, making the sudden urgency of the invitation feel less like recognition and far more like an ambush carefully disguised as routine business. Instead of rushing directly toward the executive conference suite, she deliberately slowed her pace, allowing herself a few extra moments to study the atmosphere surrounding her as though she were reading market indicators before making a billion-dollar investment. Employees she had coached for years awkwardly turned away, department managers abruptly disappeared into nearby offices, and even the cheerful receptionist who normally greeted her with a smile stared nervously at a stack of paperwork, confirming that rumors had already spread through the building before she had been given the courtesy of hearing them herself. Eleanor quietly entered her office one final time and unlocked a secure cabinet hidden behind a row of financial awards, retrieving a leather-bound folder containing every negotiated version of her executive employment agreement along with handwritten notes from months of intense contract discussions. She carefully reviewed one particular provision that she had insisted upon during a difficult renewal negotiation the previous year, smiled faintly after confirming every required signature remained exactly where it belonged, placed the documents neatly into her briefcase, and walked toward the meeting with the calm confidence of someone carrying knowledge far more valuable than any title. The executive conference room felt unusually cold, with the blinds closed despite the bright morning sun and 3 senior human resources officials already waiting beside the company's chief operating officer, whose rehearsed expression suggested she had practiced delivering unpleasant news several times before Eleanor arrived. When the executive finally announced that the company had decided to eliminate Eleanor's position as part of a restructuring initiative effective immediately, Eleanor simply thanked everyone for informing her, handed over her identification badge without protest, and left the room so composed that every person remaining inside mistakenly believed they had just ended a career rather than triggered the beginning of an extraordinary corporate disaster. Rather than leaving the building through the main entrance like everyone expected, Eleanor took a private elevator to the executive legal offices, where she requested an immediate meeting with Daniel Brooks, a senior corporate attorney who had worked closely with her during several major acquisitions and respected her attention to detail. The moment he saw the thick folder she placed on his desk and read the highlighted section of her employment agreement, his confident expression disappeared as he slowly realized that the company had unknowingly activated a contractual protection that could cost millions of dollars. Daniel carefully reviewed every page, comparing signatures, approval dates, and executive authorizations before quietly admitting that the agreement had been drafted with exceptional precision and left virtually no room for legal interpretation or escape. Eleanor calmly explained that she had negotiated the provision months earlier because she understood how quickly corporate loyalty could disappear, ensuring that any attempt to remove her immediately before a major compensation milestone would automatically trigger enhanced financial protections approved by the company's own leadership. Knowing the matter would soon reach the highest levels of the organization, Daniel immediately prepared a confidential report for the company's chief legal officer, attaching certified copies of the contract along with the approval records that proved senior executives had knowingly accepted every condition. As Eleanor walked out of the legal department with complete confidence, executives in distant offices were only beginning to realize that what they believed would be a routine termination had quietly become the most expensive mistake in the company's history. Eleanor left the headquarters without looking back and settled into a quiet cafe several blocks away, choosing a table near the window where she could organize her notes while watching the city's business district continue its normal rhythm, completely unaware of the storm unfolding inside Meridian Capital. Within an hour, her phone buzzed with a brief but significant message from the chief legal officer confirming that her documentation had been received, verified, and placed under immediate executive review, proving that the company had already recognized the seriousness of its mistake. At the same time, an emergency meeting was called on the top floor of Meridian Capital, where the chief executive officer, senior directors, and legal advisors gathered around a polished conference table with expressions ranging from disbelief to growing panic. As the legal officer carefully explained the language of Eleanor's employment agreement, the room fell silent because every signature required to approve the clause belonged to the very executives now searching desperately for a way to avoid its consequences. Determined to find an escape, the executives ordered every email, contract revision, meeting transcript, and approval record related to Eleanor's agreement, hoping someone had overlooked a technical error that could invalidate the provision before it reached arbitration. Instead, each document only strengthened her position, revealing a clear chain of approvals, detailed legal reviews, and multiple acknowledgments confirming that the leadership team had accepted the clause after lengthy negotiations and fully understood its purpose. By late afternoon, the board of directors received a confidential report estimating that the financial impact of the wrongful termination would extend far beyond the enhanced compensation, potentially including legal fees, shareholder concerns, and lasting damage to the company's reputation for executive governance. As panic spread through the executive offices, Eleanor quietly closed her laptop, finished her coffee, and smiled to herself, knowing that patience, preparation, and careful planning had accomplished what anger and confrontation never could. The following morning, the atmosphere inside Meridian Capital had completely changed. As senior executives who once dismissed Eleanor's concerns now moved from office to office carrying confidential folders and speaking in hushed voices to avoid attracting attention, every department involved in the termination was instructed to preserve documents, suspend routine file deletions, and cooperate with legal counsel, making it clear that what had started as a simple personnel decision had evolved into a full-scale corporate crisis. Eleanor arrived at the offices of her independent legal advisors with the same calm confidence she had shown throughout the ordeal, bringing neatly organized records that included negotiation notes, signed amendments, board approvals, and carefully maintained correspondence from several years. After reviewing the evidence, her legal team praised the thoroughness of her documentation and explained that the company's own internal records supported nearly every point of her claim, leaving very little room for a successful defense. Later that afternoon, the board chairman requested a private meeting with Eleanor in hopes of resolving the matter before it became public, acknowledging that recent events had exposed serious weaknesses in the company's decision-making process. Eleanor listened respectfully without raising her voice, then explained that trust could not be restored with promises alone, because the consequences of careless leadership should serve as a lesson for every executive responsible for the decision. After several hours of discussion, both parties agreed to begin formal settlement negotiations under the supervision of independent legal professionals, ensuring that every future step would be documented with complete transparency and accountability. As Eleanor walked out of the meeting into the evening sunlight, she realized that although her career at Meridian Capital had ended unexpectedly, a far greater opportunity had begun, one built not on titles or office walls, but on integrity, preparation, and the courage to stand by the agreements others had failed to respect. Over the following weeks, the settlement negotiations concluded with terms that fully honored the contractual obligations, while Meridian Capital quietly introduced sweeping reforms requiring every executive agreement and major employment decision to undergo multiple layers of legal review before receiving final approval. Industry publications never learned every confidential detail, but business leaders across the sector heard enough to recognize that overlooking carefully negotiated contracts could carry consequences far greater than anyone anticipated. Eleanor declined several lucrative offers that arrived almost immediately after news of her departure spread through professional circles, choosing instead to establish a strategic consulting firm dedicated to helping organizations build ethical leadership practices and stronger corporate governance. Her reputation for integrity, foresight, and disciplined negotiation attracted clients from around the world, proving that the value of experience and preparation could never be erased by a single boardroom decision. Looking back, Eleanor realized that the most important victory had never been the financial settlement itself but the knowledge that she had remained composed, professional, and faithful to her principles even when treated unfairly by people she had once trusted. She often reminded young professionals that careers are built not only through talent and hard work but also by understanding every agreement, protecting one's interests, and preparing wisely for challenges long before they appear. As the story of Meridian Capital gradually became a powerful lesson in boardrooms and business schools, Eleanor continued moving forward with confidence, knowing that true success belongs to those who combine excellence with preparation, patience, and unwavering self-respect in every chapter of their journey. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.